The RG505 and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus are near identical devices when it comes to the hardware. But today I'm going to help you figure out the differences to help you decide which device is right for you. When it comes to the similarities, the RG505 and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus share the same CPU, the same GPU, the same RAM and the same onboard storage, with both the RG505 and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus coming in at about the same price. Now, shipping and taxes might differ on the area that you come from, and that's something you'll have to look into, but on paper both of these systems should cost you the same amount of money. But the differences between these two systems comes in the build, the differences in the buttons and the analog sticks, in the screen, in the form factor, and they even differ on how these devices are set up out of the box ready for you to use. And those differences are what are going to dictate whether one device is for you or not. Starting off with the form factor, both the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus and the RG505 have a similar design in the way that they position the thumbsticks. However, the similarities end there because the thumbstick design is different on both devices, with the RG505 having the superior Hall magnetic sensor sticks, which means you're not going to have to worry about issues like stick drift. With the RG505 system being slightly bigger than the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, it means that the buttons are also slightly bigger as well, making them feel much more like buttons you would have on a controller, whereas the buttons on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus feel a little bit small, maybe a little bit too small for some people. But the smaller shape and size of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus means it should be more pocketable than the RG505, although that's not entirely the case, because the RG505 also comes with the in-series shoulder buttons. Now, these shoulder buttons are not for everybody. Yes, they do help to make the system more portable and slide into your pocket, but we've seen now with systems like the AY and Odin Switch lights and with the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus that stacked shoulder buttons can be just as portable. And whether you have an actual preference between one or the other is up to you. But the actual functional difference between the RG505 buttons and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus buttons means that game streaming is going to be a lot more difficult for you on the RG505. Both the RG505 and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus shoulder buttons are digital, but the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus shoulder buttons are fully recognizable on game streaming services like Game Pass, meaning that you can play all of the games on the system that require those shoulder buttons, like Forza Motorsport. However, the Anbernic device RG505, for some reason, those shoulder buttons aren't registered correctly, which means that if you're mostly interested in game streaming, the RG505 currently is not the best option. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus is the better device in this area. Now, I do believe that this is an area that Anbernic could fix with an update, but until that is fixed, the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus is definitely the superior system when it comes to game streaming. Carrying on with the differences, the RG505 has a bigger and much nicer OLED screen than the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. A screen which is perfectly designed to handle PSP games. A screen which seems to fit really nicely with the extra size of the RG505. And the size difference needs to be something that we focus on as well, because this is also an important area to consider. The RG505 sits somewhere in between a Switch Lite and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus in terms of its size, but due to the Anbernic design of the console, it feeling like a very thin slate, it makes it very easy to slide into your pocket, and that's helped with the shoulder buttons and the analog sticks, which feel like they're almost flush with the console. And this is where the Anbernic build quality really shines. The RG505 feels really solid and sturdy in your hands, which really adds to the whole concept and idea of this being a pocketable and portable device. You're not going to worry throwing this in your pocket. This feels sturdy, this feels solid, and that's something that can always be said for Anbernic devices. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, however, which is smaller and should technically be more pocketable and also has those flush analog sticks, does have a few extra pointy areas due to the stacked shoulder buttons. Now, which one feels more comfortable in your pocket is up for debate. The RG505 definitely will protrude a little bit more, but it will feel very flush, whereas the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus will sit in a little bit more comfortably deeper into your pocket, being smaller, but might not feel as smooth when it's in there. And it's up to you how smooth you want things in your pocket. Anyway, moving on. When it comes to battery life, the RG505 definitely has the upper hand over the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. And with the OLED screen, which should use less power, you've got even more battery power for your gaming needs. However, I did notice that having both systems on in standby mode, the RG505 did run out quicker than the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. So for pure game time like for like, the RG505 is going to last longer. But if you want to walk around with your system in standby mode, the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus might be a little better designed to handle that. Now, emulation-wise is where things really start to get interesting, because emulation-wise, technically, these systems are toe-to-toe. But the difference comes in how these systems come out of the box. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, which comes with Android 11, is a brilliant device, but it's a device that comes completely stock, which means that any of the emulators on there, you need to set up in terms of the best settings. The emulators will just come set up as they would if you downloaded them straight from the Play Store. Now, if you're somebody who's comfortable with emulation and tinkering with settings, then that's not an issue at all. That's something you're going to be very comfortable with and something you probably already have an understanding of the settings that you like to have. However, if you're a casual gamer or one of the hundreds of people that have asked me how easy or difficult it is to just jump into these machines, you might want something that's preset, that's already set with the best settings to cover the most amount of games. And that's where the RG505 is absolutely brilliant. The RG505 uses Android 12, and whereas initially when you start the system, it doesn't have all the Google framework in there and stuff like the Play Store, there is an immediate over-the-air update that can be triggered as soon as you connect to Wi-Fi that installs all of those and installs some extra emulators. But the key to the RG505 and what makes it so user-friendly is that the emulators that it has on there, and a great example is the Ether SX2 PS2 emulator, already have the best settings in place to give you the widest coverage of games. Meaning that doing a direct comparison like for like of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus against the RG505 straight out of the box, the RG505 performs much better for PlayStation 2 emulation. GameCube is pretty much like for like, but PlayStation 2 out of the box, the RG505 is definitely better. So if you don't want to have to mess around with those settings, if you don't want to have to tinker with your system too much, that's definitely something to consider. Following on that train of thought as well, Anbernic also give you the option of being supplied with an SD card that is stacked full of games. And that's another problem solved. It means you don't have to go and find these games on the internet. You don't have to go to shady sites to figure out where to get them. Now, granted, the SD card you get delivered is not going to be the best. And my recommendation if you go for an RG505 system is to transfer the entire contents of that SD card to another more reliable SD card. And that way, at least you're not going to have any issues. But for the option for that to be delivered, and you can essentially just plug that straight in your console, switch on the RG505 and get straight into some solid, decent GameCube and PlayStation 2 emulation is pretty amazing and a great proposition for casual gamers out there. So whereas both of these systems on paper should be pretty much like for like, there are plenty of differences to differentiate between the two and make solid markets for both of these systems. Which one is right for you depends on your choices on everything we've discussed. But if you want to see in even more detail the out-of-the-box difference between the RG505 and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, then check out this video right here.